How to find motivation after ego death. There comes a moment, not loud, not violent, but quiet, like the sound of something ancient collapsing inside you. You look in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back. The identity you once clung to, the titles, the roles, the pride, all of it has dissolved into ash. That is ego death. And in the aftermath, most people panic. They scramble to rebuild their old self, chasing pleasure, validation, applause, like a beggar returning to a burned-down house, trying to light warmth with ashes. But not us. We do not mourn the death of ego. We bury it with ceremony, and we rise from the grave as something stronger, something forged, not decorated. The first truth: you do not need motivation, you need meaning. After ego dies, the world no longer praises you. No one claps when you wake up early. No one sees the war you're fighting within. This is where most break. They say, "What's the point?" But we've learned, if your actions depend on recognition, you were never doing them from strength, but from slavery. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And living, truly living, only begins when the illusion of ego is gone. We no longer chase attention, we chase alignment with our principles, our discipline, our inner fortress. When applause dies, meaning begins. The second truth: you are no one, and that is power. What people fear most after ego death is becoming a nobody. But here's the secret the wise have always known: being no one means you are now free. Seneca said, "Throw me to the wolves, and I will return leading the pack," because a man who does not fear losing his image cannot be controlled. Not by failure, not by shame, not by the crowd's rejection. You are no longer climbing to be admired. You are climbing because the mountain is there. We rise each day not for the eyes of others, but for the quiet voice that watches us when no one else does. And when that voice approves, no one else matters. The third truth: after ego dies, discipline becomes divine. Without ego, there's no more emotional chaos, just clear choices. You feel empty, but that emptiness isn't a curse. It's a clean slate. And on that slate, we carve a new law. We act, no matter how we feel. Epictetus wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not what you feel like doing, but what you must do." We are no longer led by moods. We are led by duty, by the kind of self-control that does not fluctuate with how the wind blows in our emotions. That's what they don't tell you after ego death. You don't feel more alive at first. You feel nothing. But if you endure that nothingness, if you persist through the numb, dry days of discipline, something awakens. Not ego, not pride, but fire. The kind of fire that doesn't flicker when the world gets cold. The fourth truth: rock bottom is sacred ground. After ego death, we do not rise immediately. We fall deeper first, into silence, into loneliness, into the haunting question, what now? But here's what we've learned in that darkness. Rock bottom is not the end. It is consecrated ground. The ancient Stoics never feared the fall. They prepared for it, daily. Seneca reminded us, it is in times of security that the soul must prepare itself for difficult times. So when the collapse comes, when your identity is shattered and nothing familiar remains, you don't collapse with it. You observe, you reflect, you strip everything down to its core. And there, in the ashes, you meet the one person who will never abandon you, your inner command. This is where true philosophy begins, not in libraries, not in temples, but in the raw silence of a man with nothing left to prove. We do not curse the fall anymore, we honor it. Because from that sacred ruin, we rise with something the old self never had: clarity. Not on what we are, but on who we choose to become. That's why we never fear starting again, because now we don't build with ego, we build with eternity in mind. If you've reached the point where ego has died, don't rush to rebuild what broke. Build something unshakable instead. Because this is not the end of your path. It's the first time you're walking it awake. Subscribe for more truths they won't speak in the light. And until next time, stay silent, stay sharp. And remember, motivation fades, but self-mastery survives every death.